Hi, and welcome to the first episode of the Hockey Dad Diaries. I am the Hockey Dad, and I'm very excited to be starting this podcast and to have you along with me for the journey. This is going to be a podcast, hopefully, like none others. I think that hockey, especially youth hockey, is such an amazing sport. It's amazing for the kids. It's amazing for the parents. And it really helps build, I think, amazing young adults. Hockey is one of these sports that's unlike other sports. You know, you can pick up high school football and end up playing in the NFL. But hockey's different. Hockey is a process, and it's a very long process, and it's a very complex sport with a lot of complex movements. There's a lot of mental aspects in hockey, and we're talking about young kids. And that's what I want to focus on in this podcast. This is about young hockey players that are just starting, hockey players that might be in their teens, but you're still young hockey players. This is about youth hockey, right? Minor hockey, if you will. This is not the podcast that's going to talk about, latest trades in the NHL. This is a practical podcast. This is about information that parents can use in their own lives, within their own hockey families. Hopefully it's helpful. You can share the information with your kids. And I really want to provide a benefit from this podcast. I have listened to, I can't even tell you how many podcasts, YouTube videos, read books, listened to lectures and seminars about youth hockey and how to make your kids better, how to make your kids better athletes, better people, you name it. But most of the shows that I listen to are focused on either selling a product or selling an idea. But there's not a lot of information out there about what you guys as hockey parents go through. And if you've been in the hockey world for a little bit, you know I'm talking about, kids that might be telling your kid that they're not good, or parents that might be the type that stab you in the back when you think that you're friends with them. There's just so many scenarios that pop up in this hockey world, and there's not enough resources available to help people. Listen, I want to give you a little bit of background about me so you kind of have an understanding of where I'm coming from and how I got to this point and why I'm able to talk about this to you. You see, I started off as a young athlete. I played all kinds of sports, soccer, baseball, and at an early age, I learned to ice skate. Now, my mother was not big on hockey, so she took me for figure skating lessons. And, it was good because it taught me how to skate, taught me about using edges and how to skate, but I never actually played ice hockey. I did play street hockey, and then eventually as I got older, some roller hockey, but never got to play ice hockey. But from a young age, I was fascinated by the sport of hockey. It's unlike any other sport for me. I mean, there's so much going on. And back when I was young, you're talking about the era of heavy hitters and just the brutality of the sport, the aggressiveness, the skill. It was just amazing. And I was captivated from day one. But I was also an athlete, as I said. And I grew up at a time when private lessons weren't really a thing in your sport. You kind of just went to practice once or twice a week and hoped you got better. You did all you could. Well, I eventually got into, more of a competitive sporting environment. I ended up playing sports in high school, doing quite well, winning some championships. And then ultimately, I moved on to college where I was a college athlete. And I had scholarship offers from D1 schools. I got into, of course, D2, D3. And ultimately, my sport was the javelin throw. Yeah, it's like out of nowhere, I'm this kid that loves hockey, knows how to ice skate, and I end up going to college throwing the javelin, but whatever. It was that competitive experience that I developed. And it was, at a time again where you didn't have all the resources available to you that our kids have available today. So there wasn't a lot of, fear of missing out on clinics and camps. And you just worked hard and you did what you could and you made the best of what your God-given talents were. And the rest was just done by hard work. Right. And so my experience growing up in sports taught me about hard work, but it didn't prepare me for what it was like to have my own children in modern day playing a sport like hockey. So fast forward, I'm married, I have kids, and my third kid comes along, and he was is, I should say, the most athletic kid of my three. Just from a young age, he's the kid that's throwing himself off the couch, jumping off of, whatever he can jump off of, rolling, tumbling, gets hurt, doesn't make a difference. And I remember one time he's running around the living room, falls face first into his toy box. His tooth gets knocked out. The tooth is stuck in the wood on the toy box. It's like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this kid, right? So what do you do with a kid like that? You take him to a hockey game. I'll never forget. I took him to his first hockey game. My wife and I, and my other two kids, and, my other two kids are interested in what they have at the concession stands. And, hey, can we get that ice cream in the helmet? Meanwhile, my little guy is just captivated by it, the movement, the excitement. And at 3 years old, he says to us, I want to do that. And so, being a competitive, sports-minded kind of guy, and knowing the benefit of sports, not just from competitive standpoint, right? I'm talking about what sports does for you as an adult. Sports teaches you discipline. It teaches you organization. It teaches you self-worth. It teaches you responsibility. It teaches you ethics and morals. There's so much to sporting if you allow it to be that way for you. Sure, there are a lot of kids that just play sports and want to beat the hell out of somebody. But, if you allow the process to develop in you, there's so much that you can learn from sports. I mean, it's a proven statistic that student athletes typically perform better in school during their sport season. So if you're a soccer player, when you're in season, your grades are probably going to be higher than when you're not doing a sport. And that's a fact. It's a statistical fact, and I experienced it myself, and it had to do with a regimen and discipline and focus. So anyway, my kid at 3 years old says, I want to do that. So we start looking into it. Now, remember, I took ice skating lessons years ago, and I could still skate, but I was not a hockey player. And yeah, as a young adult and as an adult, I played roller hockey and street hockey and could shoot a puck, but was not in any way, shape, or form a competitive ice hockey player. So while I knew about sports, I didn't know about the world of ice hockey. And it is its own unique universe, its own unique world. If you've been in the world, you know. And if you're just entering the world, buckle up, because it really is an experience like no other. And as, now a veteran hockey parent, now, when I talk to other hockey parents who have been in this for a while, they get you, and everybody else on the outside of the hockey world thinks you're nuts. And it's just the way it is. And as a matter of fact, I bet that whether you're new to the sport or a veteran, at some point when you've had conversations with people who are not in the hockey world about hockey, whether it's, oh, my kid plays hockey or my kid wants to play hockey, I am sure that somebody has said to you, hockey parents are nuts. Don't you have to skate at like 5 o'clock in the morning? Isn't it expensive? Isn't it nuts? Isn't it time consuming and competitive? Aren't those the parents that like fight each other in the stands? Oh, I wouldn't do that. I guarantee you've heard it. I've heard it. I must have heard it 100 times. Well, anyway, I didn't know what to expect and how to best help my 3-year-old get involved in my favorite sport. And so it was a ton of trial and error, a ton of wasted time, wasted money, listening to people that didn't help, finding people that did help, getting on a path that was good for my athlete and my family. And it was hard. It was very hard. And it's still a learning process, right? It's like any job you have, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a manager at a store, a mechanic. It's, you know, you practice your craft. And every day you get better and better and better, but you never stop learning. And that's what hockey parenting is too. It's a process. You never stop learning. There's no such thing as an expert hockey parent because every day you learn something new if you're open to it. Well, I wanted to start this podcast because it's so frustrating to have a kid that wants to be in a sport more than anything. And there's so many resources available, but in order to find the right ones, you've got to sift through the weeds. And sometimes that process, like I said earlier, is time-consuming, expensive, and very frustrating. And I want to give hockey parents an opportunity to hear from somebody who's been in it, right? Both as an athlete who gets the idea of college D1 competitive athletics, and from a parent who didn't know how to get your kid into this sport effectively and efficiently to give them something that they love, and all the trials and error that I went through. And I think that, you know, it's important for me to share this with you because, you know, as you get up into the higher ranks of the hockey world, it is a very narrow funnel that you start pushing yourself into. In other words, the hockey world, you've heard it before, I'm sure, the hockey world is small. It is small. My kid, who is a 2011 birth year, and we'll talk about all the hockey terminology for you new parents, you know, in later episodes, and why we refer to our kids by their birth year as opposed to what their actual year is. But my kid's a 2011 birth year. And at this point in his young life, he knows kids from up and down the East Coast, some kids from the middle states, and is friendly, whether it's, you know, on the phone or whatnot with these kids. You know, it's very difficult at his age now not to know somebody somewhere. Whether you are at a summer camp in Michigan, or whether you're playing up and down the East Coast, or, you know, anywhere in the country, he just runs into the same kids all the time. And it's quite fascinating because as you progress in the sport, that funnel narrows and you just seem to know everybody. And that's why if you ever follow, you know, junior hockey or Team USA or a lot of the draft picks, these kids, and then even when you get into the NHL, these kids all know each other. It's like, oh yeah, I played with Jimmy when I was in, you know, juniors, or, oh yeah, we roomed together when we were at a development camp. And you hear these stories, and if you listen to the guys in the NHL, especially the younger guys, they all know everybody. Not too long ago, I was listening to an interview with somebody who had been traded to another team, and they said, you know, what was it like? I believe he was coming to Jersey, to the Devils. What was it like going to the Devils from, you know, wherever you were? And his response was, well, I used to play with so-and-so and so-and-so when I was younger. So I knew people. It was kind of okay. I knew people. Hockey is unlike any other sport in that sense that as you move through the ranks, you tend to know everybody. And it's a family. And anybody that tells you that it's not a family, they're not in it. Hockey is a family. I remember a couple of years ago, maybe it's more than a couple, but the Humboldt Broncos was a team, and there was a tragic bus accident, and I'm sure that those of you in the hockey world remember it. And throughout the country, people put sticks out on their porch, to commemorate and to pay their respects to these kids that were tragically killed in this bus accident. And what other sport can you think of where the entire hockey community comes together to put sticks out on their porch? And how many people drove by those houses saying, well, why are there hockey sticks out in front of that guy's house? Right? I mean, it's amazing. It is a family. And, you have to accept the fact that hockey is a journey. It is a family. It is a community. And I want to give you insight so that you don't have to struggle as much as I did to figure it all out. I can't tell you how much money I've wasted trying products, looking for coaches, doing things that, were a waste of money or didn't pan out or didn't take us in the direction that we wanted to go. And, that's the point of this. I really want to kind of pull back the veil and share with you from a hockey dad's perspective, and maybe even get my wife on every once in a while so you get a little bit of a hockey mom perspective. But I want to share with you what it's like, and I want to give you some honesty and honest feedback, because a lot of times with the younger parents, or the parents of younger kids, I should say, it's very competitive. We'll talk about in the next few episodes some background about how youth hockey is broken down into tier 1, tier 2, the levels, what it means. We'll get into all of that. We're going to be trying to go through so much throughout the course of these episodes so that you have a really firm understanding of what it is that you're getting yourselves into and how to navigate it, right? And we got to go back and if you're an experienced veteran parent, you already know the difference between a mite and, a peewee and all that stuff. And so bear with me, I should say, through some of those episodes where we're talking about stuff that I promise you that in every episode of this podcast, I'm going to throw some other stuff in there that is helpful regardless of whether you're a veteran parent or not. And we're going to do, a little bit of fun stuff as well. So just because we might start talking about something you already know, don't leave me hanging here, because at some point in the episode, we are going to get to something that maybe you didn't know or that's helpful to you, regardless of the level of hockey parent you are. So anyway, I want to give this honest opinion and feedback to try to help you, because like I was saying, it's a very competitive arena. And while it's a hockey family, sometimes it could be a dysfunctional family, depending upon the team you're on, the parents you're with, what you're doing, the level that you're at. And I want to help you navigate that, because this is about your kids. It's not about you. It's about taking a love for a game that is 100 years old, that was played with sticks and, pelts and all kinds of stones and things that out on ice. And now it's transitioned into this sport where we've got these engineered carbon composite sticks that bend and flex, and there's so many complexities of what we're doing. I mean, this sport has evolved, but at its heart, it is those group of guys out on a frozen pond, frozen lake in the middle of winter, just playing hockey. And I want your kids to love hockey the way that my kid does and the way that I love it. And so I'm hoping to help you navigate through some of the difficult times so that you don't have to go through as many downs and that you are really focused on the ups. Because without a doubt, and I told you I had 2 other kids. They've played sports. They've tried them all. We've done soccer, we've done basketball, we've done baseball. They're not, in love with sports the way that my youngest kid is, but we've tried it all. And I've coached. I've been a basketball coach. I've been a baseball coach. I've been a soccer coach. And I have never seen a sport like hockey. I love it. It's the best sport, hands down, ever. And I really, truly feel that way about it. And I know that my youngest kid feels that way about it too. And it's not me sort of projecting my love of the game on him. Because if he had never shown any interest in hockey, I still would love it. And I'd still love him regardless of what he did. But he has this love that is his own. And I want to give him every opportunity to explore that love for this game, to go as far as he can go, to play as long as he can, to have as much fun, to learn as much about the sport and about himself as he can. And being that this becomes at the youth level very highly competitive, there's a lot of things that you're going to experience that if I can shed some light on and help you be more prepared for them and help you make some better decisions, help your kids navigate through some, sticky thickets, then I've done my job. That's what this is. This is a heart to heart. And it's me sharing with you my experiences with 100% honesty as opposed to, being in a rink and being involved with a parent that might be competitive and holding back. I'll never forget when my kid was a mite, right? And I had met this dad, and I thought he was the nicest guy. And it was just like I was naive, right? I was like, "Oh, this is great. Look at this. We're friends. This is nice." And then he slowly started to pump me for information about what I was doing with my kid, what stick I was using, what skates we were using. Was I sending him anywhere for lessons? What was I doing? And I told him, why would I hold back? So I told him. And then I'd ask him, hey, what are you doing? And it would always be, oh, nothing. I really don't know anything about the sport. I really don't know anything about this. No, I really don't know anything about that. He'd take my information, and then, I was happy to give it, and that was that. So I'll never forget. I went to a lesson that I had told him about, and I say, I'm going to take my kid to this place. And he's like, yeah, we don't do lessons. We're just doing this for fun. Yeah, we're not, no, we're not that serious about it. We're young, blah, blah, blah. So I go into this lesson, and lo and behold, who's there? He's there. And I said to him, oh, hi. And he made all kinds of excuses about why he was there. And, then, I thought nothing of it. And we left. And the next practice, he has the same stick as my kid. And, it's just like this competitive, I'm going to pump you in for information, but I'm not going to tell you anything that I'm doing because I've got this fear as a young hockey parent that if I give you any information, your kid is somehow going to use it to his or her advantage, be better than my kid, and then my kid's going to miss out. And it took me a really long time to realize that it's not about the stick you use, the skates you skate on, the lessons you go to. It is what is inside of your kid that sets your kid apart from others. You could buy the best stick, best skates, best uniform, get the best coaching, but if your kid hasn't bought into hockey, it doesn't matter how much time or money you spend as a parent. It doesn't matter what you tell other parents, what clinics you let them know about, what, equipment you let them know about, because it doesn't change what's inside your kid. And that took me a long time to learn. And, I want to talk about that on some of the episodes and talk about, things like interacting with parents at tournaments and how to help your kids focus on what they're supposed to be doing. And we're going to be talking about equipment. We're going to be talking about everything. I want this podcast to be your one-stop shop for youth hockey. I want to talk about things that you're not going to hear about on other channels or podcasts. This is going to be a conversation between a guy who has been in it for quite some time now. My kid is, I told you, 2011. He plays at Tier 1 hockey, and I'll explain what that is to you new parents on the next episode. But, it's the most competitive level of hockey that you can play for your age group. I've seen it all. I've seen it all. I continue to see it all, and I want to share it with you. And I hope that these podcasts foster conversation, and, I can help, share some of this information to you guys so that you give your kids the best hockey experience that they can have, and that you as parents also have a great experience. Because I'll tell you, being a hockey parent is tough, right? You love your kid. You want your kid to do good, but there are interpersonal dynamics at play. It's unlike any other sport, right? I mean, it's just, you pay a lot of money for hockey. You end up being with these people for extended periods of time. There are tournaments. You're sleeping with them in hotels. You're seeing them for extended weekends. It's a lot. And I want to just talk about how to navigate that. And hopefully you guys get a lot from this. And so I want this to be an open discussion. I want you to be able to comment and find us on social media. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear about. Let me know how, something I've said has helped you, not helped you, if you've experienced some of the same things that I'm talking about or not. So that's what the Hockey Dad Diaries is about. It is my diary that I'm sharing with you about my experience with my kids or my one kid and the other kids who, when they were younger, got dragged along to all these hockey events. I want to share it with you. And I hope that, you're excited as I am to start this journey with me, and we'll see where it goes. But hopefully it cuts through so much of the nonsense so that you can focus on fostering, that love of hockey and make your kids the best people, not just hockey players, but people that they can be. All right, well, what we're going to do is at every episode, we're going to conclude it with on this day in hockey history. And so today, the first day of the show is August 26th, 2022. And on this day in hockey history, the Montreal Maroons were dropped from the NHL. This is back in 1938. The Montreal Maroons were a franchise that operated in the NHL during the 1924-25 season, and it was the same time that the Boston Bruins were brought into the NHL. The Maroons shared the city with the Canadiens for almost a decade and a half, and the purpose of the team was to be an English-speaking population of the city while the Canadians appeased the French-speaking side of the city. So the Montreal Maroons were primarily English-speaking, and the Canadiens were French-speaking. And interesting how these teams come and go. Maroons filled this void left when a 1917 fire burned down the arena of a prior club called the Montreal Wanderers. And so on this day in history, the Montreal Maroons were dropped from the NHL, and they played in the league from 1924 to 1925. I love, by the way, vintage shirts from teams that were, defunct or merged in other teams. Like, I love seeing Hartford Whalers clothes. Now, of course, you know that the Whalers became the it's just slipped my head. Come on. The North Carolina Hurricanes. And so you'd see sometimes when the Hurricanes play, they wear retro jerseys, and it might be the Whalers. But I love that. And there's a couple stores out there that I've seen where you might still be able to pick up a Montreal Maroons shirt. So that's just something that I'm interested in. I don't know if you guys are, but that's what happened on this day in hockey history. All right, that's going to do it. I want to wrap this episode up. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this, the first episode of the Hockey Dad Diaries. Please make sure that you let your friends and your family and everybody in the hockey world know about this podcast. I want to try to get, my message out to as many people as possible, and I need your help to do that. So please talk about the podcast on social media, share it, let people know about it, because I really want to try to build a hockey community where we can exchange ideas, share things that have happened. I've got a lot of big plans for this podcast. We're going to be bringing on guests. We're going to be doing some interviews, all focused around how you can help your kids have the best experience in youth hockey possible. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm the Hockey Dad, and I'll see you next time.